Hey everyone, it's Grow with Joe here. Hoping you're having a great day. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over, does it make sense to stay as a federal employee or go over into the private sector? So let me get the Facebook Live going before we start that. But a quick update about everything I've been up to. Just been really busy with work, trying to get everything going with Grow with Joe, but things are moving ahead. It's about like 80 degrees here in Mexico City right now. So coming from Portland, it's probably like 40 degrees or 35 degrees right now in December around this time. So I'm enjoying the nice weather. This weekend, I think I'm going to go to the pyramids, which are right outside of Mexico City. So I think I'll either do that, I'll probably do that Sunday. Probably do that Sunday while everyone else is, while I have the free time. And then now, okay, I just got I have the title to Facebook Live being a federal employee versus being in the private sector. All right, so I'm just gonna hit live. Hopefully that starts right away. I was trying to do this yesterday and it was having a little bit of trouble, but I don't know. When I used to live in Washington D.C., I should be good to go now. Okay, so hi everyone, it's Grow with Joe here, here to give you a quick lesson about should I stay as a federal employee or should I go out in the private sector? And I'm just going to give you a case study about some imaginary person that I just made up that will just give you a better idea of like what is it going to take to make up those benefits that you get in the federal government. So I am going to just get started. So just a little bit of background about myself. I was myself a federal employee for 8 months before I decided to go back to school for economics to become a financial planner. So I was a federal employee for 8 months. Before that, I was in the military, in the Marine Corps for 7 years. And while you're in the military federal employment, you get pensions in both areas and you get the TSP. So I understand those benefits pretty well. At my last company that I worked for, we worked a lot. I worked with a lot with federal employees and helping them understand what their pension was going to look like, how the federal health benefits were going to look like, how Medicare Part B was going to impact their retirement based on their pension and Social Security. Like when's the best time to take Social Security? So the idea is just like when you're working, the goal of financial planning when you're working is to accumulate as much as possible. You want to try to accumulate as much as possible so that when you get to retirement, you don't run out of money. Because when you run out of money in retirement, then things get pretty tough. So what we got to do is we got to spend a lot of time. We got to spend time every time we're working, just saving a little bit more. But there's some differences between the private sector and the public sector. And so what I'm going to do now is just share my screen to a whiteboard and just go over this case study that I just came up with. So this is not a real person, but it's just supposed to give you an idea of like, hey, if this is similar to your situation, hey, this is what I need to think about if I want to take that new job in the federal government, or if I'm going from private sector to the federal government, like what does that mean to me overall? Oop, and I shared the wrong thing. So I gotta share my iPad. So it's asking me to install. But yeah, just like I noticed when I was living in DC for a while, there was a lot of people that like, do I leave my job or do I go on to something else? And I was just talking to somebody who was thinking about leaving the leaving the federal government for a private sector job. And this is just going to give you a good idea of like, what is that really going to take? So, all right, get the Zoom going. Oops. Let's see if I can get that. Okay, there we go. So here's this imaginary person that I made up. So we have a federal employee. We have a federal employee who is 33 years old. They've been in the government for about 7 years now. They are a GS. They are GS 13, Step 6, living in Washington D.C. So if you're a GS 13, Step 6 in Washington D.C., you're making about $115,699 per year. And let's just say they have student loans of around $75,000. And then their monthly payment is going to be, for the next 8 years, if they were on this 10-year standard plan, it would be $967.45 per month. So they would have to pay that per month for the next 8 years to pay out their student loans on that 10-year standard plan. You could also be on another program. You could extend that to 20 years. You could be pay as you earn, repay as you repayee, income-based repayment, income contingent payment plan. So there's that payment can be lower depending on what type of payment plan you're going to be in. But let's just say, hey, that's our payment. Another thing to consider if you're a federal employee is that you can get in the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which means that if you make 120 payments while you're enrolled in that program, any balance that you have left over is going to be paid off. So I did a similar case for somebody else, and it would drop their payment down to like $575 a month if they were on one of those income-based repayment plans. And if you're not a federal employee, then you have to pay that for 20 years. But if you're a federal employee and you enroll in the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, then you just have to pay it for 10 years. Anything else is forgiven, and that money that's forgiven is not taxable. If you're a private sector, then that money is taxable, that is forgiven. So if $25,000 is forgiven, then you have to add $25,000 to your income and pay taxes on that amount of money. So those are things to consider. But another thing to consider is that if you're a federal employee, you're going to get a pension. And so there's not that many pensions going out in the workforce today. It's pretty much just federal employees and the military. Those are the only ones really getting pensions these days. So if this 33-year-old, we'll just call him Edgar worked until age 62 and retired, his pension at age 62 would be roughly about $45,816.80 per year. So that's how much that will in today's dollars get as a pension, assuming they didn't get any pay raises or anything. Trying to keep it simple. And so if you go in the private sector, one of the things is you're not going to get a pension. So if you're a federal employee, you have your pension, you have your TSP, and you're going to have Social Security. If you're a private sector, you just have Social Security and you just have whatever you define in your 401k. Most likely it depends, but that's the most common scenario that I've come across. There's also stock options and all these other things that we can play with, but just trying to keep it simple. So assuming that you're not going to have a pension in your private sector, you just got to make up for this pension that this person would be missing out if they went out in the private sector. And so their pension would be about, as a present value, what would happen is that would have a present value of $1,145,000. $1,145,420 as a present value. So as a private sector employee, you have to make up that difference in your paycheck or between your paycheck and your employer's contribution. So at age 62, this would have a future value of $2,034,088.03 with a 2% inflation rate. So that's the present value for that $45,000. It's worth, in today's dollars, worth about $1.1 million. At 62, that would be worth about $2 million. And so if you wanted to make up for that, at age 33 until age 62, you would need to save up $1,642.92 per month, and that could be either from your contributions or your employer's contributions. And you need to save that every single month until you reach 62. Plus, that doesn't count anything extra that you would put in your TSP or anything. So if we're just looking at a minimum, what would need to be saved if you were to go into, let me say that, just minimum, what would we need to save up as if you were to go from that private sector 115,000 to the private sector, what you would need to come up with is minimum, your next salary would be $135,414 at your next job in a private sector job. And so that's assuming you're still saving the same amount. So you're not really changing your standard of living until you make more than that. So if you make $150,000, then you can still save that $1,640 for your pension and what you were contributing, and anything else you would get as a standard increase in your standard of living. So this would be the minimum that you would need to offer if you're making $115,000 as a federal employee. And that's what you need to save up for. Numbers a little bit different than the 16 because as a federal employee, if you did at least 5 years, you're invested in that federal pension program, but you wouldn't be able to collect until 60 years old. I believe it's 60 years old. That's when you would start to be able to collect on the pension. But 7-year pension of 115 is not going to be that very much. It's going to be like $100 a month or something like that. So it's not that much. And so saving up that $16,000, a caveat is that's assuming you're getting a 7% interest rate. So there's a lot of different factors when it comes into choosing a federal government. The federal government is going to be more secure, but in terms of like, you know what you're going to get with the pension, like the formula is the formula, but there's always talk about, hey, we want to change how we pay our federal employees. Usually that means the benefits are cut, and then federal employees have to pay more out of their paycheck to be enrolled into the FERS program, the Federal Employee Retirement System program. So changes are always on the board. Another thing to consider as a federal employee is the federal health benefits. So if you retire as a federal employee, you can keep your federal health benefits, so that might be really beneficial to you depending on your health. Um, so that was so the store benefits, the federal health benefits, and your pension. Those are the two biggest things that people seem to need as a safety net for them. But other things to consider is like, do you want to deal with the bureaucracy of being a federal employee? There's a lot more rules, things go a lot slower. So if you're a creative type, that just may drive you a little nuts because you can't do everything you want to do. You have to wait for things for everyone to get on board and everything. That's what I saw as a federal employee. Stop sharing my screen right there. Another thing to worry about as a federal employee is those furloughs. So over the last couple of years, I think we had like 3 or 4 furloughs where federal employees were out of work for like a week or 2 weeks. They got their money back, but you're not getting paid that in that time frame. So if you don't have an adequate safety net, then that can create a strain on your budget, on your monthly budget. Another thing to consider is if you have a lot of student loans, it might make some sense to stick with it until that 10 years is up and then choose something else. But you got to really look at the numbers. You got to look at how much your student loans are. Something that I do as a federal analysis is I could show you what it would look like to pay off your student loans in the private sector versus the public sector. That's something that I offer for, like I could show as an analysis to folks. And this is also just something I can talk to people as a financial planner. My job as a financial planner is to help you make good financial decisions and also help you make good decisions with your life. Money is just a tool, and you want to use that tool to help you live the life that you want to live. You don't want to just make money just to make money, because at the end you can't take that money with you. So you want to make sure you live a good, fulfilling life that's happy to you. And that could be either as a federal employee, or that could be as an employee in the private sector. But you just got to know the deal before you accept the deal. So so there's a lot of different, what are your student loans? What are you making? Do you have kids? Do you have a lot of health concerns? Do you have all these other things? If you leave the federal government, does it make more sense to cash out your pension to plan, or do you plan to go back to the federal government? Yeah, these are all different factors that we have to think about if we're going to go from field to field. So I just hope that give you an understanding, like, what does it take from a financial standpoint? So the key takeaway is, like, if I make $115,000, I kind of have to make let's just say $136,000 to make it even on a comparison. And that's assuming you're saving all that extra. If you're not saving that extra $20,000 from your pay raise, then you're not making up for that pension. And yeah, so if you have questions about, like, does it make sense to be a federal employee or go into the public sector, this is a question that for doctors or lawyers or any people with high incomes. So it really depends. Like, if you want to go out and start your own business and if you want to go from federal employee to federal contractor and be like, hey, this is what I want to do. Like, okay, this is what you got to make, because if you make anything else, then financially, it doesn't make sense. It might give you a lot of satisfaction with your career and creativity. So those are things you got to consider. So if you want to really understand what it takes on your own personal situation, this is something I do as a financial plan. So that's what we're gonna. So if you want to, like, have a free consultation with me to figure out what is the best situation for you, I'm going to leave a comment in there with a calendar link that you can schedule a meeting with me for 15 minutes, and we can discuss, hey, what do you want in life? What's going on in your life? And it might make sense to get a financial plan. So, or you can just check out my website, growwithjoe.me, and I have one of the top there in the header services that I offer, and what I charge and everything, and what I offer as a financial planner. So if you're interested just click on that link. I'm going to click on the link to schedule a meeting with me. And as always, just send me a message here on Facebook, on the Facebook page, or you could follow me on Twitter, send me a message there, or I'm on Instagram. Just, yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. And hope you got a lot out of this. And remember, if you go with Joe, you can grow with Joe, because Joe knows dough. All right, take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.